I wanted to talk a little bit about the event that I was at Natural Lifemanship,
I want
and
to
what
hear about it.
happened with those two horses. But I'm curious because I know you've done a lot of teaching and presenting. Have you ever had a time that horses showed up, like when you were working at a demonstration, in a way that was completely unexpected, in a way that was out of character for them? Tell us a little story, and then I'll tell my story.
I mean, part of the reason why I don't teach clinics anymore, traveling around where people bring horses in from the outside to train, is because the horses are rarely themselves. They're super stressed. And people say every time that my horse never does this at home. Well, no, he wouldn't, because his stress level is too high. But the one that really sticks in my mind, and it was a turnaround situation, was a horse that came in, and we'll call him Fred the attack horse. And I heard him coming in the trailer, and he was kicking out the side of the trailer. And he was a horse. I know students of mine that are on here that will know this story. And he was brought to the clinic. It was a Liberty clinic. Interesting choice for them to bring him to, but I'm actually really glad that they did. But he had just attacked her granddaughter and bitten him on the face. And he came and he did behave differently because we behaved differently. And that's something we're going to see in this webinar today. And he didn't show any aggression whatsoever because we behaved differently.
Mm.
And it was really cool. Actually, it was a big turnaround in the end with this horse. And they realized, the more you push on this horse, the more he is going to push on you and defend himself. But if we can change ourselves, we can see profound changes in our horses. And that's what happened. And we're going to actually see that happen today. So thank you for asking that.
Yes. Yes. This event that I was at, that I was speaking at,
Yeah.
was the annual conference of natural lifemanship. And natural lifemanship teaches technically speaking, they teach a model of equine assisted therapy. What they really do is they teach relational skills. And I have learned an immense amount from them. I began to host their events at the farm campus that we had in Pennsylvania in 2016. I traveled to work with them. We did some projects together. And one of the things that I love that they teach is, first, they say the horse is not a mirror. And that's something that there's other models of equine therapy, or even people, trainers, that talk about the horse being a mirror, that, we have an emotion and the horse mirrors it back to us. And they always say the horse is not a mirror. The horse is
Mhm.
his own being. He's got his own set of experiences, his own memories, his own nervous system, feelings in the moment. But the relationship, whether that is a momentary interaction or whether this is a horse and the two of you are working together for years and years, the relationship can change, because when we change something about ourselves, we bring something different to that relationship, and that can change in a moment. So it's not a mirror, but it's this dynamic interaction that is constantly adjusting. And when we can understand better what the horse is telling us and really listen to the horse, and also be really clear about how we're feeling and what we need them to do, it's not just about taking care of the horse, it's both sides of also being aware of ourselves. That's when the best connection can happen between a horse and a person.
I am so glad you just said about the mirror thing, because you do hear it talked about a lot of like, oh, my horse is really angry because I'm angry. There can be merits in all of that, but it's absolutely true. The horses have their own experiences, their own gathering of emotions and feelings and experiences, just like we do. And I think that it somewhat diminishes the horse when we say they're just a direct mirror of us. I think it's not doing them any favors at all, and I feel like it's almost a bit offensive in that way. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. And I've written in the chat box, Natural Lifemanship, fantastic organization. Everything I've seen of theirs seems to be really right on, really good. So I'm glad you were the keynote speaker, and I'm really interested to hear. I know that you have you produced a bit of a book to go with your keynote speech, which I got to read, and it was absolutely brilliant. So I want to hear more about what it was that you presented.
So they asked me to present on reading, body language, and behavior. And to do this, of course, I have my experience, but I really wanted to take a deep dive into what's the latest research
Mm.
and how can we best how can we best understand what horses are feeling? Like, kind of also taking at it from this view of, well, what gives us the right to assume that we know what horses are feeling, and where can we have this looking at it with curiosity and not putting too much of, a story or even sometimes a label. So that was the purpose of my discussion. And I did the about the first hour where we looked at studies together. I shared lots of photographs with the audience. We talked about, horses' perception, how that relates to behavior, and then we brought in two mares. So the context of the setting, they have a beautiful area that's just perfect for conferences. It's a very large indoor arena, and part of it is completely covered, essentially indoor, and they've got a large square pen that is at one side. So all of the people watching were at tables and chairs, and then the other side was this large square pen. And they had already brought in, like before the room started filling up with people in the morning, they'd brought in the two mares so that they could be in there.
Yeah.
And these two mares live here. So they live at the farm. They wouldn't necessarily be coming into this space of the farm, but they were in their home setting. And I had gone out the morning before and worked with some of the horses in the field, really just spending time with them, practicing pure liberty, so that I could get to know them a little bit better because I wasn't sure exactly which ones they were going to bring in for the demo. And even out there, I noticed that there was one mare named Sage who was a bit of an aggressor. She was a little bit of what we might say a bully to the other horses.
More dominant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she looked to me to be a little distressed, which they had shared that what they needed to do preparing for this conference is they did have to move the horses out of their normal field, separate the herd into two smaller groups in order to accommodate them into two other fields to provide for parking, etc. So she always was already a little stressed because of this move out of her normal routine, and she was being a bit pestering to some of the other horses. So fast forward to this morning that they were both in there. As people started to fill up the room and the people were talking and kind of the energy level went up, I saw the two horses were getting a bit more stressed. They were moving about. At this point, they were still together, but they were moving around. They were looking a lot, displaying a lot of the signs that we see of stress. What shifted is when it was time for me to enter the pen, to start that demonstration with them. And as soon as I walked over there, all of the people turned their heads, turned their attention, turns their chairs right towards
Oh,
that demonstration arena. And all of the attention of it was probably 60, 70 people was now on those two
it's
horses.
a lot.
And that spiked the stress. But what was so interesting was the different ways that they responded to it. And
Mhm.
Sage's way of responding to that stress was she started to really go after Poppy. And
Yeah.
I shared a picture on social media that someone took just when her mouth is wide open and she looks like
To
she's in
bite.
attack mode.
Yeah.
So entering the pen, what I wanted to do is obviously help both of them feel better in the situation.
Mhm.
But if I had tried to control or to especially punish Sage for doing that, I could tell that it was just going to make it worse. If I tried to comfort Poppy, the horse that was being chased, that wasn't going to help either because the main stressor in that moment, which was then the other mare, was still going to be there. So I focused on actually staying with Sage in the beginning, the aggressor, and helping her feel better. And we did a combination of looking at the environment, where I would stand with her and look, and then I would ask for a little bit of movement
Mhm.
and finding this balance between when she needed to take things in And when I could just feel her start to get a little uncomfortable with standing, and then we would move. And sometimes I would move where she could just walk behind me and follow. Sometimes I would ask her to move out, and then she would be moving, and I would be moving with her, but with a bit more distance. And through that 30 minutes, it was fascinating to see how, as soon as her nervous system got down, Poppy could come closer, everything was calm,
You
something
could
would
tolerate.
happen. Exactly. She would get a little spiked again, and she would start to make faces again at Poppy, and then we'd go through the process again. So it's fascinating all of the ways that our horses can respond to stress. And that stress isn't always what we're doing with them. In that case, me being in the pen was helping to calm the horses, and the outside environment, a bit unnatural as it was the stressor.
Yeah. That's so fascinating, and there's so much to unbolt in that. Movement lowers stress. That is across a lot of species. Movement lowers stress. And when the stress levels started to come up in Poppy, not Poppy, Sage,
Age.
she would feel better when the other horse provided the movement. You move. And it comes down to the spatial stuff. You know, how much space does the horse want? How much does the horse need? And the need to move. But often the aggressors will feel so much better when they can make other horses provide that movement. And I've seen it so many times. It's super interesting. And by you asking Sage to move, you lowered her stress. It's awesome.
Yes. Yes, and I think we've experienced it too as humans. And again, I'm using consciously one of those assumptions that we make to understand our horses is knowing how we feel in situations and how we respond. And
Yeah.
yes, there's some anthropomorphizing going on there, but when we can do it consciously and know the limits of it, it can actually help us to understand what horses are feeling. And we've
Our
got enough
brain structures
experience.
are very similar. They
Yes.
are very similar in lots
Yes.
of ways. So, you know, how many times have you watched kids play and you can get a kid that's up too close? What do? They shove. They shove the other child away and get space. It seems, oh no, that's not right. That's terrible. That is what mammals will do. You move because they don't want to be the one to move away. They don't want to be the one, they want the other to move away, and it makes them feel better. And then you'll see the aggressor will lick and chew the horse that chases in and chases the other one away. It makes them feel better. And interestingly, what you can often see in the herd when this comes up is it then goes like a butterfly effect right through the herd, where this one will push that one, so that one pushes that one, and that one pushes that one, and it makes them feel better. But it's not very functional. And I believe that most of it is caused through lack of space. And we're actually going to see a video in a minute that plays to horses asking for space. When we were out with these guys, Callie, in California, we saw very little of that behavior. Even though we came as a group of people and added a stressor, they had so much room to move away that those behaviors did not need to come up, whereas the horses you were looking at are in that fenced environment, so therefore they can't move away.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's also a layer of it with our horses, and this is part of, to me, good training is not just about here's your cue, now the horse does this, here's the next cue, the horse does this. A good training is about helping the horse respond differently in situations and handle stress differently. And
Self-soothing.
yes, it's one of the things, just as you mentioned the example of the child pushing someone away. As we grow, we hopefully, learn some different strategies
Yeah.
for when we need to relate to people. And it's the same with our horses. I find that with good training, and that doesn't necessarily only mean training with people, but also like the Mustangs that have the ability to get social training from herd members in a family setting, they learn other ways to relate. and to be able to stay more calm as they're relating to others. And then we start to see some of these subtle signs that our horses give that isn't an outright, I'm going to bite you or I'm going to push you, but it's a subtle sign. And that's when we can listen to those subtle signs. Now we're in that conversation with the horse without them potentially reaching a stress level where they feel they need to be shouting at us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head about the self-soothing. And if we can teach our domesticated horses to do that better, we're part of the problem. We're a large part of the problem. That anytime horses run into a little bit of difficulty in the field or something's not going right somewhere, oftentimes with the best intentions, humans will jump in to solve the issue when actually the horse needs more movement and might need to circle and retreat and approach and check things out to find their own reset. And they can do it really effectively. But the more times that we interrupt that behavior, their nervous system doesn't get to reset, and they start to live perpetually in this stress state. And then they start getting more reactive and less able to self-soothe, and it becomes a cycle. It's an issue for sure.
Yes. So the main focus for today's call is we want to look at some of your videos that have been sent in over the last few weeks. Should we start with the first of
Yeah.
those videos?
Yeah, I love this one because we're trying to not show you the real obvious ones where, people's horses are really biting at them. It's the subtle things, the bits that we miss. So I love this video that's been sent in, and we actually this is from a student of mine in the mentorship program. So this is a before and after. So this is really, really subtle, but this horse gives us a masterclass.
So I'm going to start playing it. And what I want to do is I'm going to play through kind of the first half of this interaction, about a minute of the video. And I want everyone to just watch, notice what you see, and then we're going to go back through and we'll pause and we'll break it down a bit more. But first, just watch.
And put it in the comments. There's no right or wrong answer. I love this. So I want us to start back at the beginning, and I can talk you through this. I just wanted you guys to watch it for 1 second. There's a real subtle shift. So we can see this lady is really quiet in her body, which is brilliant. And she is calm for the most part, I believe. And I love how she quietly goes and greets each horse just with a hand, the back of the hand. I don't know if any of you saw the Warwick Schiller post this week about touching. It's something that I'm passionate about, is that we tend to over touch our horses. This lady doesn't, which is great. But there's one little shift. If we can just go back to the beginning, Callie, if that's easy to do. I want you to notice, okay, so here's good, all positive. This is a green light. And here comes, there's the shift. Okay, pause there. What did you see happen then? What did you see that might indicate that the horse's interpretation of what's coming next, what it thinks about it, what changes? What I was looking at was the right hand ear swiveled away from the student. And that was the very first sign. So even before, yes, people said the head came up, yep, and the head turned away, yes. But there was a before part, and the two ears went one onto the human and the other turned away. Does anyone know what the ear that's turning away? We've talked about this before, but it gets missed all the time. And this can be your key with horses that have really gross manifestations of their talking to you. That can be your first sign. That horse is looking exactly, Becky, an escape route. So that's the first. So there is no escape route. I mean, they could go to the back of the stable, but if we press play, you see now what happens. Okay, and then let's just pause there. So super strong body language, even though this student is very calm and knows the horses well. It's very strong body language. Some horses will be absolutely fine with this. Others are mega sensitive and they're like, whoa, don't shout at me. So this head turning, what do you think the horse is asking? We talked about it a little bit earlier. It's asking for something, and it's not up near threshold. It's not mega stressed, but it's asking for something. Yeah, exactly. Space. Now, thankfully, this student has had quite a lot of training, and she was awake in herself enough to go, I think it might be me. Instead of going, how dare that horse turn away? Don't ignore me. Or, oh, I'm going to assume that he's seen something. She went, what am I doing wrong? So she did the right thing. If we press go.
And one just interesting thing too,
Yeah, please.
the looking away when there's an interaction and then the horse clearly looks away. To Kay's point, we do have to take into account the environment. It could be a distraction,
Could
but in
be.
a context like this, it can also be a calming signal. So the work of calming signals in horses from Rachel Driesma
Yeah.
is a really, really good. There's a book, Calming Signals and Language Signs in Horses. I highly recommend it. And this is one of those calming signals where the horse is giving that sign to the other, in this case, this person,
Yeah.
that they're trying to avoid any kind of a confrontation there.
And how do you avoid confrontation? You ask for space. And I feel like that's the end goal, because the second she steps back, that horse's head comes around and he's willing to try again. He's willing to engage. Now, suddenly the rider loses their cool, and not loses their cool, but speeds up and went too fast over the ears, which caused that flare up of the horse going, rude. That's too much. So let's just pause here. I want us to have a look. What else can we see in this photograph, in this little freeze point? If we were reading the room, what's going on? What can you see? Anyone in the comments? Yeah, okay. So people are talking about the focus. That's right. Eyes. Yes. I want you to look at the nose and the mouth of the chestnut that's closest to us. Okay, so there's a lot of tension, the elongated nostrils, the squished down nostrils. I suspect, but I can't see, but looking at the eye of this horse, I would suspect that the ears are heading backwards. Now, none of this is necessarily the human's fault. She's not doing anything wrong. We don't know, and this is Callie's point all the time, we don't know the story. They could be about to go out onto the luscious green grass and the chestnut's like, I want to be first. We don't know. We don't know what's going on, but we're just looking at the general expressions of the horse. Okay, let's play. So she's handling the horse beautifully. And that's all very nice until that happens. So, interesting. Let's just pause that. Why does anyone think that might have happened? Yep, the chestnut might be anticipating the horse walking by. Camera person too close. Great point, Kathy. So what I saw as well is the bottom horse became quite aggressive. If you look back, if we're able to rewind a little bit, ears are a really interesting focal point, and people always talk about the ears. When the ears go back below the neckline, that's when you really need to watch out. So I would be very concerned about a person walking past that chestnut at the bottom, because the ears go below that neckline. So ready for attack or anticipating an attack. The far horse was saying back off. Yeah. And it turns out this horse is the black horse here, is the lowest ranking horse in the herd. And I know that there has been research on this. Callie, you might know of some research. We were talking to somebody recently about this and their name has escaped me. But what they're seeing is when a horse is a low ranking horse and they are getting pushed on by the other horses, they will oftentimes then push on their human, because they literally don't have anybody else to take it out on. And it's something that I observed a lot in herd work when I was spending a lot of time with Elsa Sinclair. She was really great at the observation of how horses share their discomfort and their stress levels. They share it in an attempt to make themselves feel better. And quite often you'll see a horse will do this to a human. Maybe that human will back off. It doesn't mean that that human is doing anything wrong. The horse is just, it's that ricochet effect through the herd. And quite often you'll see that lick and chew after. It's a way that they dysfunctionally, in my eyes, make themselves feel better.
Yes, and it's also another really good example of when we have behaviors like this, if we simply punish them, if we just react back to that behavior, it's very unlikely to have any kind of lasting effect on the behavior, because it's just kind of continuing in that same thread of there's just this constant battle for who's controlling the space, who's, controlling the movement of the other. And we don't want to be stuck in that kind of a battle. We don't want that kind of a feeling with the horses.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. And Janine rightly pointed out the black horse has already eyeballing the closest horse to us in anticipation of a problem. Yeah, and we see this in domestication a lot. You walk down the barn aisle of a lot of livery yards leading a horse, and you'll have other horses coming out to attack. And I think a lot of it stems in a restriction of movement. But when we can start to anticipate and read the more subtler signs, we can avoid these conflicts. We can avoid these situations for ourselves and our horses by reading the signs earlier, of noticing the head coming up, the nose tightening, the ears starting to rotate, and get distance. Distance is such an important thing. And I think it's something that us humans do struggle with a lot. We want to be really up close and personal with the horses a lot. There is so much that can be achieved through distance work, for sure. Okay, let's play this. There again, I'll push on my human. So I feel like the horse is doing really well here, and the still pond has returned somewhat to the barn. Just at that moment, the chestnut's anticipating, I think, coming out. So I just want to read some of these comments. We'll just pause that there for a moment, because I think these are quite relevant. Where are we? The other two could be anticipating an event. Yeah, exactly. Turnout time, expression of pent-up frustration, herd dynamics. Maybe all three, okay? Maybe all three. I like that you guys are saying, yes, we need to look at how we do things, but horses do have their own personality, relationships, and feeling that don't necessarily have a root cause with us in that moment. Absolutely. We have to be open to both. And I definitely think even when they've got their own dynamics going on, we can affect that herd. If we can come in with calmness, taking good actions for ourselves, taking some leadership decisions, maybe asking a horse to move, maybe walking ourselves, our own movement can lower the stress of the herd. We can start to spread out that calmness. I thought the back horse was telling the white face horse to back off. Yep, any of those things. Have you seen differences in the behaviors for horses that are out 24/7? I believe that these horses are out 24/7. They were just brought in to be fed. But yes, generally horses that are out in the fields and have a lot of movement. I want to point out here, and it's relevant in terms of social enrichment. If your horse is just in a very small square green box with not much interaction and too many horses, you will see all of these behaviors and more. It's about having some focal interests, enough movement opportunities, enough forage and grazing, not too many horses, you know, friends, forage and freedom, but in a way that feels balanced to them. Yeah. So I want us to go on now to Callie. Do you have anything else to interject before we put number 2 on?
Yes, I just want to say, so it doesn't get misunderstood by what we're pointing out here, that when we're working with our horses, we're not trying to, and in fact, it would be an unrealistic expectation to eliminate all and any source of stress for the horse. It's not about working with the horse completely stress-free,
Impossible.
because it is impossible. Our being
Impossible.
there, our asking for things, they're forms of stress.
Yeah.
And generally, when we talk about stress, we want to have more what they call eustress, the kind of stress that promotes growth, that helps us learn how to manage situations better. I think that's really important for our domestic horses, is to have strategies that they can manage the stressors of daily life better. And the more that we can see these kind of things and see what's going on, we can help the horse in that. So it's not about eliminating stress, it's about
Absolutely.
seeing what's going on.
Absolutely. And responding to what's in front of you right now. What do I need to do in this moment? And someone wrote, I'm unsure what to do and I'm leading. What I always like to think about is protecting my herd of 2.
Mm.
So when I'm working with one horse and there's other horses displaying things, I can't control everything and put fires out left, right, and center. I can protect my herd of 2 by gaining distance, as much distance as I possibly can, of asking for help. If you need some help, if you've got to move a horse past others, get yourself some help. So you protect your herd of 2. Someone asked, can we walk in a herd to lower stress? If you can do it safely, absolutely. Absolutely. Talking can help us feel better, Linda. And I think that if we feel better, that can make our horses feel better, I think. Yeah,
Yes, that's I think the main benefit of talking.
makes us feel better for sure. Okay, we're going to go to video 2 now, and we have what we call a context shift. So Lydia had some feedback from me about some things that we could do differently. Now, this time the other horses are not in the barn, but it had been reported to me previously that this behavior was still going on, that we saw in the first video, was still going on whether or not there were other horses in the barn, that this horse was tending to push this student around a little bit too much and trying to perhaps intimidate, but we would perceive it as intimidation. The horse is just seeing as moving someone or moving something to make themselves feel better. So yes, we have the context shift where the other horses aren't there, but the behavior had still been present. So just to clarify that.
And also, when we're working on something and wanting to kind of break down a behavior, when there's elements of the environment that we can manage/control, like removing other horses, and can we work on this without other stressors present? Great idea.
Well, and yeah, before we press go, you've hit on an absolutely brilliant point, because the whole point of training, horses learn by association. So if they can learn that in this situation they feel better, they are going to seek that out again. They don't want to feel aggressive, dominant. They don't like, I don't believe, how that makes them feel. Why do I think that? Because I've seen the changes come when they can self-soothe themselves and they choose that. They choose. That aggression level comes down when we've worked through things with them, and it filters out into the herd. I've seen it happen time and time again. So when we can help in these situations, we can make them all feel better, which is a good thing. And then they choose it.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And I know we've got some awesome questions coming
We're
in.
coming
Get to
back.
as many as those as we can, and we'll come back to them.
Yeah. So I had talked to the student about not being so square in front of her horse. So there comes a habitual, but she steps back. Okay, pause it just for 1 second. This is a really important piece here. Timing. Now, if you watch closely, you could initially think, but that horse just pinned his ears and she stepped back. Oh no, she's going to train the horse to do that. Not so. She hung in there just long enough for him to go, oh, this feels different. And she went, beautiful, and stepped back. So if we just watch that tiny interaction again, her timing was perfect. It's as if she's saying to him, this time it's going to be different. So there's the push, she waits. There's the positive change, she steps back. Absolutely brilliant and a game changer. I just was cheering when I saw that. She made a huge step. Instead of just standing there, she waited and retreated. And now look at the difference, slower over the ears. Absolutely different horse. That interaction back there was so meaningful to that horse because he did not need to bring any more fight. And he chose to do something different. That's the key here. Invitation to leave, beautiful, soft. This is where things had been going wrong with ear pinning and somewhat lunging. So the difference here is that the student is finding as much calmness as she possibly can in herself, rooting her energy to the spot. Horse joins her in it. She is not in a rush. Look at the space she gives him. See how his ear came round onto her then. That's not an escape route. That's a question. That's a connection in. Absolutely night and day.
The pauses that she gives between like moving, for example, there from she dropped the rope to ground tie and then paused before moving for the brush. All of that is really, really nice work.
Absolutely brilliant. She has come so far. And through doing this work, she has changed her relationship with her horse. She's done the work. She's put the effort in. And what's important here, and if we just pause this a moment and look how meaningful that is to that horse. He moved away a second there, but it was nothing. It's the chicken and the egg. It is really, really important that we learn to read the small signs that our horses are showing us. The ears, the tightening of the nose, the swishing of the tail, the tightening of the top line, all of these things. We also need to be honest with ourselves in how much of it we are causing by being in a rush, by being disconnected from our own bodies, by thinking we're asking for something, but actually we're asking for something completely different with our body, with our intention, with our energy, that we are disciplining a horse when actually they're showing signs potentially of fear or miscommunication or misunderstanding. So how much of this are we creating, and how much of it can more awareness give the horse a way to step back from this fight and keep their dignity? And that's the art of horsemanship.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd love to go to some of the questions here. I think we could just watch just the very end of that as she leads him out, actually, because it is a beautiful moment and she deserves to get seen. Now, bear in mind, she told me all the other horses had gone out to grazing. There, he had a little bit of, can we maybe hurry things up? A little bit habitual. You've got to give them time to fix things. All the other horses had gone out to graze. A lot of horses in the domestic setting would have been pulling. They'd had to have been on cross ties because they'd been like, oh, my friends have gone, bouncing up and down and panicking. Through the shifts that she's made and the calmness, she's turned that whole situation around, and she's learned to read his signs. Super, super important. Yes, Alison, I liked how the student shifted her weight to the outside leg and paused. That subtle movement was an absolute meaningful game changer to that horse. Yeah.
All right, so let's go back up to some of the questions here.
I think it starts here at, if I have a horse that hates grooming, is it that one?
Yes, I believe so. I was just trying to remember, Laurie, if we had already talked to your question. So I'm going to give a very
Yeah.
basic response to this, and Andrea, you can add to it. And Laurie, this may be something that you've already explored, but I think it's always definitely worth saying with horses that don't like grooming, experiment with tools. Experiment with a lot of different tools. Also, I find that horses that don't like grooming, especially if you're already using like good quality, gentle tools, is play with some Masterson method work. Because a lot of times if a horse is really not liking touch, it could be that they've got tension in their body. It could be that they've got previous associations with touch. So it can be establishing that when you're close to them not touching, they can feel good and you get relaxation with the, doing work around them, not even trying to touch first. And then doing some of the Masterson method work can be really, really helpful for relieving body tension and for working on that closeness before you actually go into a task like grooming.
Absolutely. And how many people remember as a child potentially having their parents brush their hair? It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
It's a
Why?
great example.
Oh my gosh. How much? I had hair that I could sit on. My mum was a hairdresser, and her thing was you brush your hair 100 times every day, 100 times. I didn't do it, so she'd do it for me. And my mum was great, but that's how you make shiny hair. That's also how you make your scalp feel like it's bleeding. Why was it so uncomfortable? They weren't aware. They were busy. They were rushed, dinner's cooking, there's all of those things. When we groom, I see, and I can fall into this myself when you're thinking, I'm doing the next thing. I'm going to be tacking up in a minute, or I'm going to go and take this horse and make a video. And you're brushing to get to the next bit. And that's where good old fashioned mindfulness comes in. Brush your horse to brush your horse, not to get to the next thing of tacking up, because you get faster and faster. And I tell you what, you can build up some heat in those brushes when you're going really, really quickly. So slow down your molecules in yourself. Be aware of the pressure and the touch that you're doing. Yeah. Okay, what's next?
I think Holly, do you want to speak to this one first? How can we walk in a herd, particular how to walk in a herd to lower stress?
Yeah, okay, so very much in your body, and I would say walking with purpose. So you're not meandering around going, "Ooh, I'm trying to zen out of her." You're walking confidently and with rhythm. Rhythm and confidence trump skill every single time. That's something that Elsa Sinclair used to say a lot. So walking with purpose, reading the body language as you go so that you're staying safe. You can circle the herd. That is something that can make them feel like they're being attacked if you're doing it very creepily and a bit like, but if you're walking with confidence, looking at the outside environment, walking for yourself, you will often lower the stress level within the herd. You can also walk up to horses and just ask one of them to move slightly, a little step back, touch my hand like Callie was doing at the beginning of her demonstration with the horse that was aggressive. She'd just asked for a slight movement. Movement lowers stress. So I would say walking with purpose, confidence, and rhythm.
One other thing to add, which is something that I learned from you, Andrea, is if you find yourself out there walking around, but having 95% of your focus on the horses, kind of walking,
Yeah.
but what are they doing? Oh, are they looking at me? What's
Are
going
they
on?
watching? Are they coming? Yeah.
Give yourself something to focus on there. Like I will use it almost as a meditation in nature. Oh, look at that pretty flower. And I walk over and I touch the flower. Oh, let me check out that bug on that fence post. And I walk over and I check out the bug on the fence post. It helps it make you a lot more interesting to the horses because you're not walking around but overtly completely focused on them. And it
Yeah.
will also help to give more of a purpose to your walk so it doesn't look like you're just kind of hanging out there looking over your shoulder at them.
If we go back to Fred the attack horse, that is exactly how we got him to want to connect with us. I did not try to connect with Fred. I kind of didn't want to connect with Fred because I wasn't sure what was coming. So I went into his pen. He had quite a big, like the run-in corrals that you guys have in the States, I think. And there was water in there, and there was a hay station, and then there was a bit of a view. So I just got in there and started walking with a purpose in the opposite direction to him. I didn't go anywhere near him, and I started to play with the water. And I'm not playing with it going, has he noticed? I was just like, this is the best water. This is awesome. And I'm splashing it. And I had someone spotting for me. They're like, he's coming. I was like, awesome. So I just glanced and he's walking towards me like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm on to the next thing. So then he would come and check out the water when I'd already gone on to something else. And then he came to check out that. And I was always one station ahead of him until we closed the gap, and then we did it together. And that was it. He was following at liberty literally for the rest of the clinic. We went out into the big arena and he was like, this is cool. So another way that you can help horses is to be interested in what they're interested in. But you start with your idea and then they think it's their idea. That's always a good one. Okay, where are we?
We're at Catherine. My horse headbutts me when leading or when tied up. It really hurts and feels like he means it, but is it a stress reaction?
Probably, most likely, restriction of movement can be a really big one. So if your horse is quite a fast walker and you're trying to whoa and slow them down a little bit, that can be an issue. Also, I never use short lead ropes. I'll always use a 12-foot lead line. So you can have a little bit more distance so the horse doesn't need to butt you quite so much. Also, I felt horses that are very curious, very playful, maybe not getting quite enough stimulation in the world, they will often want to interact in that kind of play way. But if you're not standing too close, they can't do that to you. So it's asking for your space so that you can be on your own line while he's a bit more over here. And when tied up, yeah, absolutely. He's asking probably for more movement. He may just find that difficult, for sure. But we're going to talk at the end. There is a chance for all of you to book a call with me, a 30-minute call for free, to get on and talk about things that you've got going on with your horse. So take advantage of that. Let's talk about your individual situations, and I can see how I can help you and things that we could potentially do together to be able to turn things around. So we'll give you that link in a minute. We'll put it into the chat box there, and you can book your free call. So I'd like to talk more with you about that, Catherine. Okay, what do we have
Thanks,
next?
Tara as well. I would definitely recommend getting on a call with Andrea because we do have some resources that could be a really good fit for you. And the book, I will type it in the chat here in just a moment. So you've got that one. That's a really good one to start with, that book by Rachel. The
Oh,
Calming.
it's fabulous. Yeah. This is the link to book a call. And we'll put it up again at the end. Okay, so yes, Alison, watching out for mountain lions. That's always a really good one. Okay, where are we? Wow, we've
We
had
have
a lot of
Julie. Julie asked, what did the leaning on outside leg and paws communicate? That was in that last video.
Yeah, so she gave him space. Look at the spacing of these horses who are perfectly in harmony. Okay. They're not really, horses tend to only really bunch up super close when there's quite a stressful situation going on. So I believe it was very meaningful to that horse. He asked for space with the halter. We need to have this image in our head of, are we invited into their space? Why do we feel like we own the absolute air all around our horses, that we have that right to just come straight up into their space and do whatever we want? That is what causes a lot of these emotions to come up in these horses, where they are communicating, I need some space. And this is where sometimes the old mindset in horsemanship can come up, where you're like, well, I'm not going to have him tell me to get out of his space. At first, he's not telling you, he's asking you. He's just asking you. And if you can respond, it doesn't mean that you don't come back. But if you can respond until his head comes round, then you're invited, then you come. You are putting so much emotional bank, and your relationship with your horse just elevates. It's time to let go of this old model of how we interact with our horses. I'm not saying that if your horse is, really stepping over your boundaries, that you don't do something to protect yourself. Of course, we're talking about these subtler things. So I believe that the shift to the outside was giving the horse a little bit of space and a moment to think, and then coming back in. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
just putting in a link now
Kay
to,
said,
this is the book. And I want to, we've got so many good comments in. We so appreciate everyone that's participating. We have more videos, but don't worry, we're going to respect the hour here, and we are going to be doing more of these webinars. In fact, over the coming weeks, we're going to have a different webinar each week. At this time, we'll be focusing on different topics. So put this time in your calendar, come back and join us again next week. We'll be looking at more videos. We'll be looking at them from different angles as well, talking about groundwork exercises, for example, talking about some exercises we can do for ourselves. So we'll take just a few more questions here, and then
I also want to say, anyone's video that we didn't get to that you sent in, book that call with me. If for any reason you can't get an appointment, you should be able to. But if you can't, email me, and we will talk and we'll get something sorted, because I want to go through those videos with you. Okay. People saying it was useful. Yay, I like that. Is there a replay? Good question.
Yes, we will be sending out
Yes.
a replay for that. So check your email later.
I think we've got it.
We did have just
Yeah,
let me
there
find
was
out. We
another
had a
one.
question here from Mary. My horse often nips me when being groomed, occasionally biting. What is this a sign of? People tell me to whack him, but I don't want to.
Good, don't. Biting is communication. He's trying to say to you that something is not working for him. I think sometimes as good horse people, we have to become a slight detective. Is his skin sensitive? Is it an association with what's coming next? I've seen horses hate being groomed because their saddle doesn't fit. Or that's what we've assumed. Like Callie said, we can't always know exactly, but we can look at all of the different situations. Maybe I've worked with horses who were so bored in their work, and we changed up their work, and they didn't show that aggression on the cross ties anymore because they were feeling more fulfilled. So it's thinking about, why does he feel that he needs to behave in that way? You could be grooming too fast. His skin could be tender. The brushes might not feel good to him. He might be sore. His saddle might not fit. His teeth might need doing. It can be many different things, but we should never ignore it. We should never ignore it. And people talk a lot about and I find that this is very convenient, we talk about pain memory. Oh, it's old behavior because it's pain memory from a former, things that have gone on in their life. Well, we recently did a webinar on the Wise Riders Club with Dr. Sue Dyson, and she was working with horses who were displaying pain being ridden, and they put in nerve blockers to relieve that pain, to try and determine where it was. And pain memory lasted 10 minutes on average in the studies that they did. 10 minutes. So yes, there can be past history and horses can hold on to that, but let's not rely on that. Yeah. Okay, I think that was all of the questions. Oh, Jill asked, did you video the interaction with Sage and Poppy? I asked the same question, Jill.
It was it was, I believe, interviewed or videoed, but that is part of the the package with their event, and I don't know if they'll be making it available, but it was interesting.
We
Definitely.
might see if we can talk them into getting a clip. We'll see. But
Oh, awesome. Awesome, Becky. We have an NL trainer here. Great to have you.
okay. Great. Yeah, you guys are amazing. You do fantastic work. Well, guys, thank you for being here. It's been so brilliant to have so many of you from around the world, and we really appreciate you spending time with us. And we just love to talk horses, and we learn stuff listening to you guys too, and the questions that you ask make us really think. But what I want to say to end with is just don't assume that your horse is trying to dominate, that he is trying to get one over on you. I want you to look at the subtler signs. What are they trying to tell you? Because I really believe for the most part that horses want to get along with us. Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Mary said she tried to make an appointment in early May, but the month won't show. So, okay, we can have a look at that, but it's Andrea at andreawadey.com. If you want to make an appointment with me, you can either book on the Calendly link, or you can contact me on my email, on my social medias, through Catherine at the HorseClass office. They'll find me.
Yes, and again, thank you for everyone for your awesome questions. If we didn't get to your question, book a call with Andrea if you'd like to discuss it more in depth there. Come back next week. We'll be here again on webinar live, and the information to register that will be sent out through your HorseClass newsletter as usual. So again, thank you everyone for being here, and have a great week. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much, guys. And I really am interested in your stories and what you're doing. So even if you think, well, not sure I've got that much to talk about, I'm here for you. I'm interested and I like to help. So if I can, I will. Feel free to book a call, and we will hopefully see you all maybe next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.